Let's go, Jimmy.
Okay, episode 25 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Noel Casler podcast, episode 25. We're 6 months into this journey now. I'm back here with my main man, Jimmy Kennedy. The boys are back in town celebrating the great Phil Lynot's birthday. Thin Lizzy, one of my all-time favorite bands. Jimmy's too young to know who Thin Lizzy is, but I love them. And Phil's looking down on us and smiling, I'm sure. Jimmy, how you doing today?
Doing great, buddy. Another crazy week to be an American, man. Holy hell. It's been a crazy week, but we're used to that now. That's commonplace.
Yeah. I wish so many people didn't have to suffer because of it, So I guess we'll get right into it, Everybody's talking about the same thing this week. What else can you talk about? It's the Taliban deal, and that pullout, which was a disaster. I mean, I don't think anybody is going to look at it any other way. It's getting cleaned up a little bit, but just what an awful thing, what awful optics, and more importantly, what awful human suffering on the ground, and it's just terrible to watch. And it was basically, in my opinion, it was a tripwire left by the previous administration, who brokered a deal with the Taliban in May of 2020, I believe, before Trump had tried to invite the Taliban to Camp David on the anniversary of 9/11, which was just the most insane thing in the world. But anyway, Trump thought he'd get a Nobel Peace Prize out of it or something. And so he cuts this deal and then he loses the election. And I think the deal had caveats, and one of them was like, if I don't win the election, then whatever peace, quote unquote, I brokered goes south. I think they were always going to hand the country over to the Taliban because I think that's what Putin wants, right? I think every action that Trump does is to appease and serve his master, who is Vladimir Putin. And all the mysterious things that happened in the Trump administration that people couldn't figure out, like why they fired USDA scientists. You may not remember this, but they told all these scientists like they had to, people who work in the Washington, D.C. area, amongst which, I have an uncle who spent his whole career there as a USDA researcher in Beltsville, Maryland. And these guys study crop yields and things like that. These are dedicated professionals. And inexplicably, Trump was like, you guys either have to move to our new facility in Kansas or like be fired in 2 months or something. And everyone's like, why is he doing this? Trump was doing stuff like that to appease Putin, because they want to like mess up our agricultural system. It was the same way he had all these tariffs. Who benefited from all those tariffs, that Trump put on crops? The Russians, because now they could sell their stuff on the world market, ditto steel tariffs. So back to the subject at hand, that's what this deal was that he cut with the Taliban. How our current, intelligence officials failed to see it, even though they were cut out of the transition, once Trump lost the election. Basically what happened is Trump sent Pompeo and Jared over to the Middle East on a 21-day tour, right? On November 21st. It's like, you already lost. Why are you sending your boys over there? And their line was, they want to shore up the Trump administration's interest in the Mideast, all right? So my take on it is it was basically Pompeo was like, all right, we're doing plan B on the Taliban deal now. Make sure it's the biggest shit show you could imagine when they pull out, and don't let the other guy know it's coming, right?
Right.
And that's basically what happened, right? That's the images you had on Sunday. You're too young to remember. I was just a kid. I was about 4 years old when Saigon fell. And I remember watching it because we would watch the nightly news every night in Crofton, Maryland at the time, living at my grandma's house. And I remember seeing that on TV, and obviously you can see the images on video. And this was the same sort of thing, this spectacular image of giant American imperialism losing interest in a country that we attacked, that never wanted us there, and now leaving it much worse for the wear, and leaving the people that we sort of coaxed into supporting us and, helping us all the while to die, to be slaughtered by your enemies. I couldn't imagine anything more horrifying than what's happening now. And, it's kind of how we roll as a nation, Jimmy.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of our war making at this point is to make money for companies and to imperialize for raw materials to fuel capitalism. That's kind of become the MO of the armed forces, is to police the world, and in exchange you get some resources along the way that continue the systems that have put us in the place that we are now. And you talked about it in your car rant this afternoon. There's been opportunities where we're with Afghanistan and then we're against Afghanistan. It's all about resources and whatever the political position is at that time. And as far as Trump and how he's placated to Russia, just look at the way he had the Kurds slaughtered. That was another army base that was completely taken over by the Russians. And everybody forgets about that because at the time it was during the first impeachment. But Trump has repeatedly undermined the United States and their interests as far as international relations are concerned. Certainly.
Exactly. And it's a good point to bring that up, Jimmy. And in Trump's little screed that he was deleting, they were furiously deleting all the credit he had taken for the Taliban deal on Sunday. They removed it from his website. They removed mentions of it from the RNC because we know they like to rewrite history, right? But in that little missive that he sent, he said, yeah, I pulled out and it was peaceful, just like I pulled out of, Sudan, and how I pulled out of Syria and left the Kurds and took the oil in all caps. He writes that, plundering is a good thing and legal in his mind, and people also forget, you made a few great points, the guys that we sort of just handed the country over to, unbeknownst to us, the Taliban or whatever. Osama bin Laden was part of the Mujahideen. He was a rich Saudi Arabian scion from a wealthy family who went to join this fight that we supported in the late 70s, right? Because those rebels were fighting against the Soviet Union that tried to invade Afghanistan and got their asses kicked. Like the British and everybody before them. You can't fight these kind of wars on somebody's home turf, when the home turf is either jungle or mountains, the kind of place where you can just hide out in a village and they're not going anywhere, right? So they have everything to fight for. And you have 19, 20-year-old kids that may or may not buy the sort of patriotic bullshit that you're selling them as to the reason they're in that war. And most of them get there and realize it's BS. My cousin was a Marine sniper in Afghanistan, and he was all for it. He was a product of 9/11. He's a young man, and he joined up, and he said, I got there. I realized my job was shooting at poor people, there was no gains to be made. We weren't trying to take over the country. It was a war of attrition. It was like Vietnam. You're just trying to kill as many people, and a general's putting a hash mark on a chart he has on some wall somewhere, and then you take a hill, then you give back the hill. There's no point to it. And while that's happening, people are getting killed. The people who live there, the people who are invading the place, and I had buddies that, are very right-wing MAGA types. And of course they started texting me on, this week after it happened, and they're like, I can't believe Biden messed this up so much, He's like, we were there to do good things, and now they're leaving behind all these people I helped. I'm like, dude, you went there to shoot people in the first place. Don't act like you went over there to start hugging these people, right? The dudes that were rah-rah joining up to do this weren't doing it because they're like, we want to bring education to Afghanistan. Come on. You wanted to kick some ass. You saw what happened on 9/11. Somebody told you these are the guys who did it, and you wanted to go kick their asses, and the Taliban are evil. I'm not saying they're not, they are. And they were hiding Osama bin Laden, who then escaped to Pakistan, and who miraculously could never be found by the Bush administration. They didn't want to find him because he's a boogeyman who lets perpetual wars happen. Just like you said, this was about Kellogg, Browne, Root, and Halliburton getting the contracts to fund the services that it costs to prosecute a war. Okay. War is the largest consumer of gas and oil in our country, right? The largest emitter of carbon, waste is from war. You know how much fuel they use in those tanks and, helicopters and all this bulldozers and things to build military bases. And people don't realize these operating bases, they're huge in terms of a logistics infrastructure thing, right? They have Subway sandwich shops. They have all these civilian employees that are part of war. It's big business. There's a lot of money to be made if you get these no bid contracts, to go and do this stuff. And that's what KBR is, the military services company. The infrastructure of war, there's a lot of money in it. If you're in that sort of field and you're in gas and oil, there's going to be a lot of demand for gas and oil if you're sending the United States military and 200,000 troops to occupy a foreign country. And then you get sick of it after a couple decades and you're real rich and you pull out and you leave a mess for the next guy, and that's what they did with Biden, so like one administration profited from it, right? Bush and Cheney and all these guys, and then Trump, Obama was stuck with it, and remained mired in it. And then Trump used it like, for his own gain, like he does everything else, and had a sort of more wily counterpoint that was dictated to him by Vladimir Putin, which was like, I'm getting that country back. Vladimir was like ex-KGB, USSR, Soviet Union. He doesn't forget his grudges. He's still prosecuting the Cold War against the United States. And he's basically kind of winning these days, because all these guys you see at these school rallies and stuff showing up, spitting out this anti-vax, anti-mask screeds. Those are soldiers in Putin's army. They think they're patriotic, dumb fuck Americans, but they're really doing the bidding of a Russian who's trying to destabilize our democracy and hurt our people as much as he can. Right. So Putin was like, hey, the deal is, and I'm wrapping up here, folks, but this is my point. The deal was, Trump lost the election. Putin was shocked because he thought he'd win. He was able to put him across the finish line in 2016. Trump only became more popular. So shockingly, he loses. And thankfully for the, course of the free world. And Putin goes, well, you owe me Afghanistan. I'm getting that thing back. I want to have influence in that sphere. And now he's going to have it. And the most maddening and sickening thing is this plays into Trump's hands and his base so well. Okay. If you thought Benghazi was something you heard about a lot, in the 18 hearings they had or whatever, in the 600 hours of testimony, just wait until this thing gets rolling. This is all you're going to hear about for the next 3 years. And any dumbass MAGA supporter who couldn't see through the veils of bullshit they've been fed for the last few years are going to eat this up like it's. There was a guy yesterday tried to blow up the Library of Congress. He was mentioning Afghanistan. He was mad because he thought Afghan refugees were going to come here and get free healthcare. Right? He was from North Carolina. He doesn't have healthcare because his own government didn't take part. His own state government opted out of the Medicaid option. To appease these shit kicker racists. I'm going to curse a lot today, folks, just to give you a warning. I usually don't curse in my act, but I can't help it anymore because it's maddening, right? And where's the opposition? What are we doing? That was a fumble, man. That was an unforced error. That was not something that Biden should have walked into, and his intelligence agencies failed him. And he's a man and he's owning it. He's not blaming it on somebody else, but God, you just gave them everything. And you probably gave them the House and the Senate in the midterms, if not the next election,
Well, and, maybe I'm outrageous, but these days, I don't think outrageous can even be covered, but my doomsday scenario is that Trump could be back in power before 2024. If they take back the House, they appoint him as speaker, and then they file the process of trying to get Biden out and then Kamala, at this point, they're full fascists. They could do that. And what's going to stop them from trying to get him back into some position of power,
Absolutely. And Matt Gaetz said he was going to do it last night. Matt Gaetz was at a rally last night in Wisconsin with the little, with the glass eater troll. What's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene.
The ventriloquist dummy without the person operating it. Yeah, man.
Dude, her job should be bare knuckle fighting behind a truck stop dumpster for loose cigarettes and beef jerky. That's as far as her career ever should have gone. Right? Yeah. People should have been placing bets on whatever truck driver she was going to beat up, and getting paid in loose chicken wings that they find on the, she's just horrible. Right. And I'll get on a tangent here if I'm not careful, because, it's just, we're in such a bad position with these guys. So anyway, Matt Gaetz has given a speech last night with MTG talking about this, saying Trump's going to be instated. He's going to make him Speaker of the House, and he laughingly invokes one of the insurrectionists who put his feet up on Pelosi's desk and says, oh, if Nancy didn't like that guy with her feet up on his desk, wait till Trump's sitting behind her desk. And he got applauded for saying this, and they could get away with this, because people are so goddamn Pollyanna-ish about this thing, right? Matt Gaetz, everyone's like, he's going to jail. That was March, man. He's got a podcast, right? He's competing with us. He's got a podcast. He's doing tours like a comedian, right? He's freaking making bank because he knows he's kind of untouchable. He's a smarmy white kid with a powerful father. And this country was set up to protect people like him. And he knows it. That's what all these guys know. They're in on the deal, right? The FBI, there's an article came out today. Reuters is basically an arm of Russian propaganda at this point. So you can't really trust them. But the article was like, and I got friends that work at Reuters, but it's a piece of crap, let's be honest. And they said, that leadership at FBI doesn't see any connection between Trump, and his leadership and January 6th. It's like they were making T-shirts, bro. There was organization there. There was more organization than Lollapalooza, and Coachella, like there was buses coming in. Trump was tweeting, get on the bus. January 6th is going to be wild, right? It was freaking completely organized. The guys had walkie-talkies. They were working in concert with each other. They were walking through lines with one hand on the other guy's shoulder as they went through crowds. They were military moves. I'm not going to rehash this whole thing because I've done episodes on it, with Zev Shalev and all these people, but it was completely organized. But Christopher Wray's not going to see that. He's from the Federalist Society. I don't think people really understand what kind of guy joins the FBI for the most part. If you think the cops are like hardcore, like white supremacist types in your town, meet a couple FBI agents, and it's not to say they're all like that, but and I'll find this stuff on Twitter. I'll never find more vocal supporters, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, of the DOJ and the FBI than like middle-aged white women. Middle-aged white women are always like, come on down, calm down. They're getting it done. Give them time. Merrick Garland's just building an airtight case. Like, you don't have time. Where is this constant faith coming from? This isn't Atticus Finch. This is not Law and Order. You might have been raised on this institutional faith, but it's not working in your favor. The FBI did more to damage Hillary Clinton than they ever have Donald Trump. Okay. He killed his executives in the late 80s when his hotel was under investigation. Well, his casino, Taj Mahal. If they wanted to arrest Trump, they would have done it 30 years ago. Okay. Trump has gotten away with not paying his taxes for 30 years. A friend of mine, Mary Boone, is a big art dealer in New York City. She went to jail 2 years ago for tax evasion. She was a 70-year-old woman who got thrown in Danbury Correctional Institute for not paying her taxes. Nobody with the last name Trump has ever gone to jail for tax evasion, and his father did it since the 50s. His son did it. So these big institutions, they're in the business of giving a pass to somebody like Donald Trump. And if you really think they're going to hold him accountable, you're clearly mistaken. And like I always say, time is not on your side. And Sunday, the Afghan pullout was why I say that. Okay, because they're always running out the clock until they can do some other kind of thing that levels the playing field for them. And this botched pullout now gives them talking points for the next 2 or 3 years that are going to be louder than any kind of, thing you can counter with about the insurrection, because you didn't go after them. You needed to arrest people in the spring. You needed to do it right away, not, oh, we're building an airtight case. It was the same people like, it's Mueller time. He's taking a long time because he's just going to nail him. No, he's not. He punted to Congress and then disappeared. He didn't come out and give a press conference. Not saying his report wasn't valid, but it wasn't what you need. You're not going to beat these guys with the team we have. You need some young, kick-ass, unafraid, leadership in there to really hold these guys accountable. You need Eric Swalwell and this generation of folks. AOC. You don't need business as usual. Well, let's appease everybody. Merrick Garland was appointed in the first place by President Obama to appease the Republicans. He was like, this guy's a conservative. They'll definitely have to confirm him, and Biden's, I'm hands off with the DOJ, which is great in principle, but it's the wrong time for that. You need somebody who's going to be like, you need to go in there, clean house, kick ass, and take names, or it's going to be too late. And we're inching up on too late.
Yeah, we're right there. I mean, one of the things I was and you kind of mentioned it, man. I think that Joe realizes the magnitude of the moment, that the Republic is hanging there in the balance, but the way the system works and all the interests between the lines keep him from really being able to kick ass, even if he wanted to, because of all the money that gets made with books being written and just people wanting to keep their positions. And, you brought up a great point. Middle-aged white women, being so supportive of all these investigations and stuff. One thing that I've talked about with women here is like, where are all of these men's wives that are saying, I'm going to leave you if you don't stand up to Trump? I'm a little disappointed in all these spouses that stood by and allowed their husbands to work for scum like Trump during that 4-year stretch.
Look, it was women that put Trump in the White House. It was suburban white women and rural white women that put him over the line. I was at an airport with Graham Nash in Florida, in maybe October of 2016, right before the election. And I'm waiting for my bags. And these two, well-to-do, I think it was Fort Myers Airport, we were heading to Naples, Florida, a pretty wealthy area. And these two women are waiting for their bags. And they're talking with each other about the election. And they're like, well, we can't vote for Hillary. Yeah, I don't trust her. Well, I guess we have to vote for Donald Trump. Well, he's crazy. Yeah, but at least it'll be entertaining, right? These were women that were 50, 60, they were in their late 50s, 60 years old. They were unwilling to vote for a woman. Right. They were unwilling to vote for an accomplished, smart woman in Hillary Clinton. I don't know what's made them feel that way, but somehow they thought it was better to vote for a sexual predator, who spent his life, trying to fuck teenagers, and was on his fourth wife, who was an escort, that he had his fourth kid, by a third woman with. Somehow that made more to these comfortable women who were waiting for their, Louis Vuitton bags, and they were going to get in their Mercedes, and they were going to go to their nice house up in Naples and stuff. Didn't care about like what it took to get America to the point that you had a woman candidate. And there's something, and it's like I'm saying on this same institutional thing. There's something in people's psyche that think, well, a white man in a suit, has to be the way to go, right? And it's not. It's part of this parochial, like, thing that we inherit as Americans. It's like, it's why, like, any candidate right now who's like an older white guy who's asking me for money on Twitter. Like there's one from North Carolina who I just unfollowed, and then he saw that I unfollowed him, so he unfollowed me. And I unfollowed him because he was asking for money every 5 seconds. He's like, help me get to such and such. Help me get to such and such amount. We're almost there. Hey, Twitter peeps. He was doing these scams that you see on Twitter, just asking for money. And his tweets were just regurgitating other people's content. So I unfollow the guy, and then he unfollows me too. So you could see his interest wasn't really serving. He was looking for people he could make money off of, and I was sort of giving him the benefit of the doubt, but he's from a state that I'm like, do we really need another white man with silver hair coming out of that state? Right. It was a Southern state. Let's get a person of color in there. Let's get a woman in there. Right. Let's get a woman of color. We need representation that represents America now. Right. And the guys that are like these older white guys or vets or whatever, you got to step aside. There's a lot of other ways to help in this country. You can be an ally to other people and put them in the legislative branch, and put them in the executive branch and support them. Be an ally. Go do something else. It's your country. It's been your country for 300 years. Like I say all the time, go play golf, go build gazebos. You know what I mean? Like if you don't want to, and if you want to join the fight, help out at a local level. It's not like people that just come into office aren't going to need help and support. There's a million ways to do it. Be somebody's chief of staff instead of being the guy who gets to sit behind the big desk. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of what I tell folks. I tell people with disabilities all the time, look, you may not be able to play in the NFL, but you can be on the sidelines. It's the same deal. Every one of these candidates need good people around them to build a strong campaign. And you brought up a great point, man. We don't need Chuck Grassley. We don't need Dianne Feinstein. She's been a loyal part of the Democratic Party, but she was the mayor of San Francisco in the 1980s. Like, she's been around for a really long time. We need some new blood, some new ideas. And, I was thinking about the bomber at in Washington the other day. They got rid of Timothy McVeigh within a matter of weeks in Terre Haute at a federal prison. Like, the way that they're walking around and letting these guys walk free from the insurrection, it's embarrassing, and they need to take it seriously.
Dude, they haven't found the bomber that sent the 2 bombs on the Capitol, right? This FBI that everybody's like, oh, have faith in them. They're getting the job done. They were asking the public for help to identify the 500, whatever people, 1,000 people that entered the Capitol. They're like, can you help us identify this person? And a couple cases they messed up and let people go. And like sedition trackers had to go and like remind the FBI, no, this guy's a criminal, right? And that those people are foot soldiers. Right. People are like, oh, they arrested another guy. Who cares? The judges are letting these guys out left and right. They're getting to go home, all kinds of crazy things. The chick who stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop got released on bail on her own recognizance. You know what I'm saying? Khalif Browder spent 3 years in fucking Rikers Island, 2 of which were in solitary confinement for allegedly stealing a backpack as a 15-year-old, and his family couldn't afford, $600-700 to bond him out. And the guy spent 3 years on an island called Rikers Island, which is hell on earth. Hell on earth. Nobody deserves to live under the circumstances they live under there, no matter what you did, right? But all these folks, they're getting like, hey, I got to go to a wedding. Hey, judge, can you let me out of jail? Like they're already benefiting from the system that's set up to protect them. And I'm not really interested in them, Yeah, oh, I'm in jail, but who led them there? Give me your Roger Stones again. Give me all you guys that Trump has already pardoned. So the whole thing is a big freaking scam. And like what about the Nashville bomber at Christmas? Whatever happened? You ever hear about that guy?
Well, and you brought it up, man. How is Trump not under arrest just by being an accomplice of other guys that have been arrested? Like Mike Flynn, Steve Bannon, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort. He's been connected to all those guys. By association, he should be under arrest.
Look, he let those guys out of jail and pardon them so they could do exactly what happened on January 6th, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Right? It's Ocean's 11, and they were putting the team back together. Right? We need the ninja guy to break into the vault and do, gymnastics so the lasers don't point him up. We need Roger Stone to dress up like Batman and go out in public, or Batman's villain, and go out in public and get the Proud Boys all riled up and stuff. They all had their purpose. Mike Flynn, a fascist, and this is a fascist takeover. Okay. You're so close to the point of like no return. And thankfully legislators are pushing back. Texas the other night, they blocked all of this, like Governor Abbott's mask, anti-mask mandates in school districts. They basically all said, F you, old man. You know what I mean? Like we're wearing masks in schools, thank God. And he's got it, right? The creep has it. And he's already gotten 2 shots. He got his 3rd booster. He's getting Regeneron. He's getting the best healthcare in the world while he's letting his constituents die.
Well, and, Roller Texas Ranger, just like Donald Trump, is getting socialized medicine. As the governor, it's not like he's going to have a bill for $100,000. And how many times has the GOP placated, it's about the children. It's about saving children, each year in each election cycle. You have kids with ventilators that are on vents, man, that are dying every day, and you still refuse to wear a mask. You don't give a shit about kids. Stop acting like you do, because you don't. And one more thing, as far as leaving Afghanistan, where were you when kids were being separated from their parents at the border? It's a shame. It's the same shade of skin color. You should have cared about that too. You can't pick and choose where you put your empathy.
That's my point. I'm talking to you about my MAGA veterans who call me up or text me all pissed off the other day, like all these women and children in Afghanistan are getting left behind now. It's like, dude, you just supported Donald Trump. You're worried about women's rights and kids? You're from Florida, man. Kids are dying. Your governor's getting a cut of Regeneron profits through his biggest donor. He told everybody not to get vaccinated, not to wear a mask, but they could get free Regeneron that the government is paying for. Again, socialism, right? And you see him dying on the floors of public libraries. The woman in Jacksonville is laying on the floor, moaning and crying and pulling herself forward, with a plastic sheet over her, trying to get through the 4-hour wait to get these Regeneron treatments, which is kind of way too late to be getting them when you have that many symptoms. Like, she needs to be in a hospital bed, not the floor of a public library, that 1,000 people have been walking on, right. And that it's so degrading. And that's somebody's wife, that's somebody's daughter, that's somebody's mother. It incensed me to see this smug, arrogant prick who went to Yale and Harvard and Navy JAG school and started his career, as a Navy JAG in Gitmo, telling them what they could do to prisoners and interrogate them, right? And then he was a Navy JAG advisor to the Navy SEALs in Fallujah during the surge. Can you imagine how much hinky shit that guy signed off on, Ron DeSantis, when he was in that position? If this is how cruel and sadistic he is as a governor, right? But he doesn't care, and they don't see themselves as being held accountable because they know that they sort of have the army on their side, right? There's no Democrats surrounding the state capitol and the governor's mansion in Tallahassee, right? We don't take to the streets anymore. The MAGA guys do, right? And what did the bomber have yesterday? What was he in outside the Library of Congress with his propane bomb? Was he in a Prius?
Was he in a pickup truck?
He was in a pickup truck, a black Ford F-150 with big jacked up wheels, right? It's a militarized, toxic mentality. It's what I've been trying to tell people for fucking 5 years. He's building an army. Trump is a con man. He realized, hey, there's a lot of really dumb, really racist, white trash Americans out there. And that's his term. That's what he called these people. He would have his security walk with him through the casinos and say, don't let the white trash touch me. That's where the whole germaphobe thing came from. He's not a germaphobe. He eats McDonald's. You don't eat McDonald's if you're scared of germs, let alone, sleep with anything that walks in a room that you can grab or rape or assault. Okay. He's not worried about germs. The dude doesn't brush his teeth. Okay. He's filthy. He smells. Okay. He shits himself in diapers that he then sits in until somebody comes and changes him out of them. Okay. He's not worried about hygiene and germs. That was a made up thing because he didn't want people touching him in the casinos, because all these women that he would bus in from places like Kentucky and Ohio and these same states that he now grifts, as a president and post-president, he sent these buses out when he owned these casinos, and they'd be like, come gamble in Trump Casino. And he'd send these free buses and they'd bus all these people in, and they'd put their social security checks into his, coin operated fucking whatever you call them. What are those things where you pull the wheel? Slot machines, right? And he'd walk through, because he always needs attention, right? So he'd walk through the casinos so everybody would look at him, right? Because he needs that bump. Ooh, look, there's Mr. Trump, right? And he used to walk around like he was president back then. He would always have a phalanx of security guards, and every once in a while, a woman would get up and run over to him, right? And be like, hey, Mr. Trump, love it. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being here. And he would have his security push them away. He'd be like, don't let the white trash touch me. And then he'd take all their money and he'd send them back to their states without so much as a free meal. And they had the shittiest food in Atlantic City in the Trump casinos because he cuts costs. He doesn't care about people, that's a true story. That's how he feels about this. But he realized, hey, these dumbasses can serve me again as president, and I could get them all riled up and thinking that the immigrants are taking what they need. And that's what this bomber was about, right? His whole litany was about how immigrants were getting free health care, or these guys that were going to come from Afghanistan, these refugees were going to get free health care, and his wife had cancer and we had to pay the bills.
Right.
Right.
Well, and
Sorry, it's the resentment of the other. You know, the guy who's preventing you from getting health care is on the 18th hole at Wingfoot right now, you know, about to go back to his 6,000 square foot mansion in Watermill, you know, like it's not some immigrant who's sneaking across the border to work their asses off and help their kids have a better life. Those are your brethren, man. Those are the people you should be siding with and living alongside with and learning from and sharing from, because the culture that they can bring you can also snap you out of this white bread mentality that's kept you so goddamn ignorant for several generations, right? Have some tacos instead of fucking Cracker Barrel, you know, and eating hot dogs out of 7-Eleven. Learn from another culture.
yeah, I'm not going to go with the rotisserie hot dog, bro, anytime soon. But I'll mention a quick golf story about Donald Trump that I heard the other day. So he's playing golf, I believe, at one of his clubs, because God knows no other club would let him be a member because he cheats. But he's playing with Mike Tirico, who's the voice of Monday Night Football. And Mike puts the ball about 10 feet away from the hole, and he goes up to putt and he can't find the ball, right? And they find it about 50 feet away from where they had tracked it back in the tee box. And, you know, Mike finishes the hole, and instead of putting for eagle, he manages to get a double bogey. And Trump's caddy later tells him, Trump kicked your ball. I saw him do it.
Yeah.
You know, so Trump not only cheats to improve his score, he cheats to ruin his opponents. Like, that's evil shit that you do on the golf course. That shows you who he is, man. It's not just about improving him, it's about ruining everyone else.
Well, because, you know, and there's a million stories like that, Jimmy. That's how he plays golf. My buddies used to play golf with him. You know, he can't compete on a level playing field, right? He was born a dumbass, right? He was born with learning, you know, disabilities that his family was too embarrassed to address. He's dyslexic. You know, they hid it instead of saying, let's get the kid some help. He had behavioral problems. He was punching his teachers, you know, instead of like sending him to a shrink, they sent him to, you know, reform school, i.e. military school. And he tried to throw his roommate out the window and tell everybody he was a World Series caliber, you know, pitcher and baseball player. You know, he's a lunatic. And I'll just say one other thing. It's a great story, Jimmy, and I'm glad you shared it. It's a great metaphor for who he is. He didn't not get into these other clubs because he cheated. He got into them because he beat his wife. Okay. And it was seen as, you know, a horrible déclassé kind of thing, as it is. He tried to join Maidstone, where I was just spent the most of this week. And the beach I go to is right next to Maidstone, Egypt Beach in the Hamptons. And I saw whales all week and stuff. The whales just swim in the water now because of global warming, because they have to come in closer to get food, which is heartbreaking, but it's cool to watch. But so yeah, he tried to join Maidstone in the 80s, and they gave him like a temporary summer, you know, membership. And then he wanted to be a full member, and they were like, it's never going to happen, bro. You know, and that's when he started opening his own golf courses, because he just knew, like, if that was the top one, he knew he wasn't going to get in. But yeah, he's a cheat. And they're all cheats, you know, and they're getting the people that they cheated to help them cheat more, right?
Yeah.
They're getting the people that they cheated to help them cheat more. That's what the GOP is now. It's this same illusion that this country was sort of founded on. I'm going to get the indentured servants that I'm bringing over here to work for pennies from Ireland, you know, or wherever, to resent the African Americans and the enslaved people. So they don't realize that the wealthy landowner is the one who's really screwing them over and keeping them down. Right? That's how it works, man. That's like sort of the foundation of industrial empire capitalism, right? It's the guy who owns the steel factory who's gonna rally against the, you know, is gonna tamp down the unionization of workers and trying to get a fair shake at things, because you want a company store, right? You want these people indebted to you because you get nothing but cheap labor for the rest of your life. And that's what the Koch brothers sort of have institutionalized into American politics, you know, and you get all these wing nuts like Ted Cruz and Lauren Boebert and, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Madison Cawthorn or whatever the freak his name is. And, you know, and they kind of like, they do their bidding and they do the performative kind of saying crazy stuff. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene said, Biden's not a president. He's a piece of shit. Right. She said that on a video. She's a member of Congress. Like, that's insane. Can you imagine talking about your boss, essentially? You know, you're an elective representative. He's the highest representative. It'd be like if I was on a rock tour and I was like, Mick Jagger sucks. Fuck that guy. You know what I mean? He's not a singer. He's a dick. Right? Like, and put a video, like, would I expect to still work on that tour when I showed up tomorrow? You know, like, that's how, if I said Jerry Seinfeld's an asshole, you know, like when I worked again as a comedian, and I worked for Jerry Seinfeld on The Marriage Ref, and he is an asshole, but no, I'm just kidding.
I was going to say, Jerry seems like a really nice guy. Or at least
I wouldn't go that far, Jimmy. He's not what you would say is a really nice guy. I don't think anybody would accuse Jerry of being a really nice guy. He's not an evil guy, you know, but
I saw him talk to like Kesha, and she's like, Jerry, can I give you a hug? And he's like, no, thanks. It was like the most Jerry Seinfeld thing ever in real life.
You know? No, look, we worked with him on The Marriage Ref. He never said hi to us. Like, you'd get in an elevator with him. It'd be like you and Jerry coming in on Monday morning, and you'd think he'd acknowledge you a little bit and be like, hey, how's your weekend? None of that. Like, he just,
fair enough.
If you're famous, he'll stop and talk to you. If you're not famous, he doesn't really want to deal with you, you know?
Fair enough.
Look, if Jerry, I'll get in trouble. I shouldn't go on it. If Jerry had like dated a 17-year-old like he did back in the 90s, now his career would have been over. Yeah, you know, the best thing that happened to Jerry was like he got famous at a different time. And you know, his manager is a friend of mine. I love George Shapiro and stuff. And look, Jerry's like a teacher to me just because he's a student of comedy and all this. I'm not trying to get on a rant on Jerry. I'm just saying, how do you like say something like that, like being Marjorie Taylor Greene, and expect to not have repercussions? And she won't have repercussions, you know?
Yeah. Well, and I think it came out this week, Lauren Boebert's husband made like $500,000 that they didn't disclose. You know, she went from working at McDonald's a few years ago. It's not like these guys aren't going to take advantage of the perks that the job gets them. You know, these are folks that are elevating themselves out of poverty. Why wouldn't you give other people in this country the same chance?
That's a great point. Jimmy, you're a psychic, because that's what I was getting towards. That's exactly what I was getting towards. So they come in here and they do this performative clown act, right? But they're not clowns. Lauren Boebert learned real quick. I get on the Natural Resources Council and I propose legislation that benefits oil companies and drilling in Colorado, outside of Rifle, Colorado, my district. Then I get paid. Right. So her husband started getting paid right away when she was campaigning. They're like, here's $500,000. What you want to do is like knock down any legislation that stops drilling in Colorado on public lands. And what did she do as soon as she got to Congress? She started to write a bill that did just that. Okay. She sits on the Natural Resources Council, and not just because her middle name is Opal. That's a joke, because that's a gem, right? You know, but and she's from Florida. She never stood a chance. Let's be honest. Her middle name's Opal. She's from Florida. It was either stripper or congresswoman, right? Those were her two options. And congresswoman is going to tip better, right? And that's what she's doing. She's getting tips from the oil and gas industry. You know, that's what it's all about now. And they do it out in the open. It's always been that way, right? Special interests and big business has always bought and sold politicians, Democratic and Republican alike. Okay. But the Republicans have taken this sort of WrestleMania monster truck ethos to next level stuff that's now disruptive to American society. Okay. It used to just happen behind the scenes and everything was kind of copacetic for most folks. So you went about your life and you didn't pay that much attention to it. You know, now the politicians are lighting fires everywhere, you know, and making it life is hazardous, you know, so you die in your country. You know, the reason all these red states are against anti-mask stuff in schools, because they want a dumb populace, right? These poor kids have already lost a year's worth of education and socialization because of the shutdown, right? And now you're messing with it again. Instead of saying, hey, everybody wears a mask, all the teachers are vaxxed, mandatory, all the workers, let's get these kids back in school and back to normal learning again in the classroom. That's not what they're doing, because they know that they can further alienate this demographic. Like, these people are going to get so stupid. Like, you missed 2 years of public education in Florida, you ain't becoming a Rhodes Scholar. You know what I'm saying? Unless you really want it really bad. But more likely you're gonna be like, you know what? I'm 18. Hooters is hiring. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that to denigrate these people. I'm saying that's the plan. They need hourly workers. They don't want a big educated population. They've never been fans of public education. They send their kids to elite private schools, right? It's the same thing I'm saying. The elite ruling class wants to dominate the working class, and there's no middle class much anymore. It's either top 1%ers, or people on the bottom. And the only way you get up from the bottom is education. So COVID is a great opportunity to make sure a big swath of Americans, mostly rural whites in southern states, don't ever get up off the bottom. That's what this is about. That's why DeSantis and these guys are kind of causing yet another round of chaos. There's 6,000 kids quarantined in Tampa. No, 10,000. It went up. It was 10,000 yesterday. 10,000 students quarantined after 4 days of school. That's the second year in a row like these guys have had this craziness. If I was in high school and I was a troubled student, I didn't care about studying and stuff. I had all these other things, emotional kind of shit I was dealing with when I was a teenager. I'd have been out of there by now. You know what I mean? I'd have been like, you know what? I'm gone. I'm going to go to Vail and be a ski bum or something, which I did anyway, but I waited till I graduated high school. Like, these guys aren't going to wait. And that's what they want. They want them to drop out and give up, because then they're stuck. Then they're working at Arby's. They're working at Walmart. They're working at Amazon. That'll be the big step up. You get a higher wage at Amazon, but then that's a whole nother disaster that you're never going to get out from under,
Yeah, well, and thankfully, in my situation, I grew up in a pretty well-off city with a really good public education system. But as somebody with a disability, I was susceptible to the flu and just getting a cold more than the average kid. Not only are you dealing with the average kid not being able to attend school, but people with disabilities or underlying conditions, that they need a mask just to be able to walk in the room, let alone learn any kind of lesson. How much are you actually retaining if you're worried about getting a disease the entire time you're in the damn building? Let's give children peace of mind. Can we not traumatize them in their earliest years? I mean, can America at least do that for our kids? I don't know.
We're not doing that. We're not a country that cares about our kids, Jimmy. You know what I mean?
I know.
This country has changed more in the last 5 years than I've seen it change in the last 50 years. And I'm 50 years old. I've been paying attention since I was about 3 or 4, because I had to. So don't kid yourself about where this country is going and the direction of it. It's not that it's a good place, but we're in dark days, man, and the bad guys are winning in many ways. Look at climate change. Do you know how much has to be done that people are unwilling to do to turn this thing around? When I worked on touring bands, my mentor and one of my main dudes is a guy named Jackson Browne. He's the reason I'm in the business. And I did my first big rock tour with him, and I was a road manager. And his wife partner started something called the Plastic Pollution Coalition. And it was about trying to stop single-use plastics in a commercial sense, right? That's what causes the ocean gyre. That's what's killing all the whales and marine life and killing our oceans. And 80% of the living species on the planet are in the oceans, right? The oceans die, you die, Jimmy. It's as simple as that, right? And so he was like, we're going out on this big rock tour. We're going to be going all across the United States. And when you're on a rock tour, you get what's called after show food, right? So every night you get a bunch of takeout food. Sounds good, right? It's good.
It does to me. Yeah,
I know it does. It's good for everybody. It's on your tour bus, right? So you're in the band and the crew. When you've finished your hard day working and playing, you're going to get on the tour bus and there's going to be all this local nice food there, barbecue, whatever it is. Right? It's awesome, but you get carry out food in this country. It's coming in a plastic bag, in a styrofoam container. They're giving you 50 plastic forks. Your side of coleslaw is coming in a plastic thing, So he was like, figure out how to not make this happen. Right. So we got water. We got stainless steel water bottles for everybody in the crew. Right. We brought our own water filter on the road. We threw it on the truck with all the amps and speakers and stuff. Right. And it was my job when I did the after show food is that I would find restaurants that like, look, I don't want this stuff in takeout containers. I got my own stainless steel containers. I'm bringing them to you sanitized. I'm going to place an order for $500 worth of barbecue or whatever it is, because they're big bills, burritos, whatever it was. And you're going to put it in these containers, and we did that every night for months, crisscrossing the country. And it was a pain in the ass, Jimmy. It was hard to do. And it's so much easier for people to just take the plastic straw and the plastic fork, but that's going to kill you, and that's going to kill your planet. And as I said last week, nobody wants to be the one to do the annoying kind of pain in the ass thing, but you get used to it real quick, right? And that's what we need leadership for, to say, hey guys, and a lot of municipalities have already banned plastic bags, right? You can't get a plastic bag in New York City anymore. You go to the grocery store now, you bring your own bags. People are getting used to that. You'll get used to not getting plastic forks and stuff. You don't need all this crap. You can carry your own reusable fork with you. You can learn how to use a pair of chopsticks or something, that you keep or that are made out of wood. You can make this stuff out of bamboo and all kinds of alternative things. And once again, any talk of this, it's like, oh, you hippie liberal, they're trying to take away your hamburgers. No, we're just trying to save the freaking planet for your kids too, Yeah. And my point is, like, there are so many challenges above us or facing us right now. And that's why the GOP and all this stuff is so dangerous, because you really need cohesion as a country. And we need to be coming together to address education, healthcare, infrastructure, climate. We've never had more challenges in front of us, and we've never had more obstinacy and sort of bad guys trying to make sure the good shit doesn't happen. It's like we're trying to learn and progress, and somebody keeps pulling the fire alarm because they think it's cute to make everybody have to walk out in the parking lot in the middle of the school day. That's what the Republicans are doing. It's not about legislating anymore. It's about creating chaos. It's about Jim Jordan sitting in on hearings and screaming, and Lindsey Graham pretending like he's really offended that they'd accuse, Brett Kavanaugh of raping somebody, which he obviously did. You know what I mean? It's about this performative, assholeness, and Trump was the perfect guy for this, because they're like, look, he gets away with it. He's rich and powerful, and nobody held him accountable. He was clearly working for the Russians. There was clearly a massive investigation. They clearly found evidence of it, and nobody really had the will to enforce any of it. And now he's emboldened again. This thing in Afghanistan, I'm telling you, man, this ain't going away. This will define Biden. It'll be the only talking point. It'll get married with xenophobia and with like, they're sending all these refugees to your town, which started right away, right? You saw the photographs and the tweets right away of right wingers being like, do you want this plane load in your town? Yeah, I do. I'd rather have them than MAGA guys any day of the week. Any day of the week, I'd take that over some redneck in a pickup truck and a huge lawnmower living next door to me. Any day of the week.
Well, and it's every white guy that I know is the one carrying the gun. I'm going to take the refugee with, $1 in his pocket, as opposed to the white guy with a gun on his hip. Stop pretending like you're some John Wayne cartoon character. Most of them are domestic terrorists when you walk around with a gun openly like you're some kind of cowboy. You're not. You're living in the suburbs, like we've talked about, bro. Like, you're comfortable. What are you so gun tooting about, man?
I know. They wouldn't wear a mask. They spent there all day long sitting in their basements playing video games, right? You're playing Call of Duty, but you wouldn't put on a mask. You missed the point, bro. You wouldn't step up when it counted. That's the defining theme of the MAGA generation and the people that identify as Republicans now. When it counted, you didn't step up. You failed your country. You know, you failed your children's future. You know, you failed yourself, and you should be ashamed. And we need to call these people on it. It's no more like, well, we got to be nice. Masks are a political issue. No, it's a health issue. You know, grow up. Anyway, this is kind of a hardcore episode, and that's the way it is, man. It's a hardcore week. I don't know. What do you got to say, Jimmy? We're going to say goodbye now.
I can lighten it up a little bit. Tim Tebow got cut by the Jaguars this week for the tight end spot that they had available for him. I just interviewed a guy that played tight end at the NFL level. Okay, and this guy was the best player I ever saw at the high school level. He was a star at UCLA and managed to play one season for the Chargers before getting cut. You know, I'm not saying everybody knew Tim Tebow was going to get cut, but looks like he's no longer in the running for an NFL job, but he'll be a commentator for ESPN in a matter of months. So you just wait, man. You'll see him on TV.
Right on. Is tight end the guys who like jump up in the air and catch the ball?
They'll be, yeah, they're like the offensive lineman and receiver combo.
Like Gronkowski and stuff?
Yeah, Gronk's a tight end. Yeah.
That's a tough job. That's because that's the one where you get tackled by two dudes in the middle of the air when your hand is extended. Yeah.
I mean, for a quarterback to say that they can play tight end, you know, it's like a point guard saying they can play center. You know, yeah, you can play it, but it's not going to go well, you know. Yeah, and it's whatever, you know. Good for Tim for trying.
Right on. All right. Well, on that note, hey, man, I got some shows coming up, folks. They're coming up quickly. A little less than a month. I'm going to be at the Ram's Head Tavern in Annapolis, Maryland. It's one of my favorite places to be. I was there 10 years ago with Stephen Stills. I was his road manager. I stood on the side of the stage and ran his teleprompter. You'd use a teleprompter too if you wrote most of your songs 50 years ago when you were stoned. And now you're trying to remember them. Everybody does. There's no shame. But we had a good gig that night. It was kind of crazy. And I'll tell that story and many more. So I'm looking forward to that. That's Thursday, September 16th. It's only a $20 ticket. I'm going to be masked, vaxxed. It's going to be safe. I won't wear my mask when I'm talking in the microphone, but I will wear it when I say hi to you after the show. So I hope to see you there. I'll also be in Connecticut, Norwalk, right in my neck of the woods. South Norwalk is a kick-ass place to hang out. That's going to be Thursday, November 18th. That's a big theater, Wall Street Theater, man, 700 seats. So come on out for that. And look forward to seeing you all there. You can find me at noelcasler.com. All the ticks and links and all that stuff you need is on there. So until next week, this is episode 25. I'm going to let my boy Jimmy plug his thing for you right now. Jimmy, plug.
JBK On Air is my podcast. You can check out all of my stuff at jbkonair.com. Follow me, JBK On Air, Twitter and Instagram. Hit me up.
Yeah. There you go. And Jimmy's Facebook free, man. How's that feel, Jimmy?
It's a 500-pound monkey off my back, man. I don't have to have it on, you know, don't have to worry about it. Don't have to get the notifications constantly. Leave me alone, Mark. I don't need your notifications.
Did you see Mark Zuckerberg yesterday in his Oculus glasses? And his
Yeah, he looked really cool. He looked really cool, man. He's such a nerd. Like, shut up.
Dork, man. God damn. You think you could hire like a hip consultant or something? You know, you're a billionaire. Just have somebody follow you around and be like, bro, no, get off the wakeboard. Don't put, you know, SPF 60 white face paint on your face and then take a picture, man. You're a billionaire. Act like it. You know, I was telling you, I was out on this nice beach out in the Hamptons earlier this week, and I think it was Little John passed me, you know, heading right down by Maidstone, you know, and in a black Rolls Royce with blacked out windows, brand new, with a paper license plate. You know what I mean? Okay. Just riding shot, you know, holding it up by the wheel. Like, I'm like, that's cool. You know, that's how I'd be rolling if I was a billionaire. Enjoy it, you know, give back to others. Most importantly, you know, buy a few toys and then like solve a few problems and enjoy yourself. Don't like try to be a Mark Zuckerberg. Kids, don't be a Mark Zuckerberg. That's our lesson. So anyway, episode 25, 6 months in the books of the Noel Casler podcast. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next week. Be safe.